Welcome to Trope Academy, where every trope learns its place. Of course, we have to have a hero. So our hero is, shall we call him the every boy, who is coming to the school because he's been told to come to school. You know, we can't move the story forward until he gets there. So he shows up at the gate, looks in and sees a big hulking boy holding a younger boy up in his fist and threatening to punch him. And he hears something about lunch money. So he goes over and says, excuse me. The bully looks over. What? Why are you doing this? I'm a plot device. This is what I'm supposed to do. But why? What's your motivation? Motivation? The bully drops the boy on the ground. Motivation? I don't need any motivation. I'm a bully. And he walks off in a huff. Our hero straightens his jacket and helps the young boy to his feet. And the young boy looks at him and says, what did you do to your school uniform? And our hero says, well, I'm a tailor. So the school uniform didn't fit very well. So I made it fit better. I like looking good. You're going to have problems in this place, the kid says. By the way, I'm sidekick number 2. Sidekick number 1 quit last week. The bully got to him. Well, very well, number 2. Shall we go? We don't want to be late for class. Now, imagine a story starting where immediately we're looking at, okay, these are tropes, and they have no idea why they're doing what they're doing. It could be an interesting story. I've seen people do somewhat similar things and make it work. But the way that makes it work is that they take the tropes and they own them. Now, what I mean by that, what I mean by owning a trope, is that you take that cardboard cutout of a bully, like this, and you give it some depth, some interest, some background. Now, the point is not to stop and explain, well, the bully is a bully because, you know, he had a hard life. His father beat him. His mother didn't like him. You know, he just wasn't very good at anything. He's big, he's clumsy. So the only thing that he's good at is fighting, so he beats people up. No. Anytime you stop your story to explain somebody's motivation, you have stopped the reader from reading your story. What you need to do is know that motivation in your own head. And then figure out, how is that going to make this particular bully different from all the other bullies in all the other school stories? If all he wanted, the only thing that he wanted was to be seen as strong and tough and have a place in the world, then certainly, you know, his father beating him up and his mother not liking him and everybody laughing at him because he's big and muscular and a little bit dumb, that might work. But where does he go from there? How is he going to grow as our hero grows? Even if you are he's staying the antagonist for the whole book, he's going to need to change a little bit at a time to match the hero's change. So his bullying is going to become different. Because if all he does is come up with the same thing, go grab the guy, give me your lunch money, eventually it's going to get boring. You know, like really, is lunch money really doing that? And where's everybody else? Where are the teachers who are allowing all this stuff? So give the person some motivation. They want to have a place in the world. There's a social need. Bullies don't just bully because they're bullies. They bully because there's a need that they want to fill. What is that need for your character? And when you have that need, you understand how and why your bully is going to change and what is going to drive that change and what it's going to do to their behavior. And all of a sudden, your bully is more than the two-dimensional bully number 2, big and dumb. And he becomes Bob, the blacksmith's son, who isn't as strong as his dad and not as dexterous, has a hard time in the forge doing anything but work the bellows. So his dad yells at him a lot because his dad wants him to become an apprentice blacksmith, and Bob doesn't have the gift. And his mother thinks he's a waste of time because he eats too much and doesn't do enough work around the house. He's looking for social attention. And if he can't get it in a positive way, he's going to get it in a negative way. So he grabs up the sidekicks and shakes them and gets their lunch money back from them because it gives him a place. It gives him a role. And as long as he's got that role, he's fine. The interesting thing is, what do you do when you change the role? So let's go back to that courtyard scene where our hero asks the bully, "Why are you doing this?" And the bully is trying to think, this is what I do. Well, you don't need to do that. Think about it. Let's talk. There's got to be some better way of you becoming important than pushing people around. And the bully looks at him, and Bob, his head's about to explode because he's never thought about this before, so off he wanders. Now, what has happened, instead of us just seeing the bully stomp off and still be the same bully, now he's thinking. He may or may not change, but he's thinking. One of the things I like to do with my characters is what I call 2 traits and a quirk. Now, the idea of the 2 traits and a quirk is that you give them something like our hero, who is kind, obviously brave, and a tailor. Now, a tailor may or may not be a good quirk, but, we can work with it. What you want to do is have something that just twists that character just a little bit to set them off from other characters with the same role in other books. Harry's got that scar on his forehead. He's the one who lived. And that causes him most of his trouble at school. If it weren't for that scar, if it wasn't for that whole name thing, Harry's schooling would have been relatively boring. Still dangerous, but not nearly as boring. Not nearly as interesting. So when you give people motivation, you allow them to change because there are different ways of fulfilling that motivation. Let's look at another case. We have the beautiful blonde girl who bullies all the other girls. Why? She's followed by a gaggle of girls who clap at all the appropriate times and titter and laugh. But what's she getting out of it? Getting a sense of importance, getting an idea that she's better than anybody else. Maybe underneath, she really is insecure that The only thing that she has to offer in this world is her beauty, and it's shallow. And what's she going to do as an adult? She's got no skills. She's got no abilities. The only thing she can do is bluff her way through life, trying to be more important than she is, so somebody will buy the story and, in fact, place her in a spot where she will have the importance that she desires. Now, when we look at it that way, our blonde cheerleader number 3 somewhat gets beginning to get interesting, because she's really very insecure inside. She has no real concept of what she wants to do with her life other than being important. And she's not really sure she understands what that means. So how is that going to change her behavior? Well, one of the things she's going to do, she's going to play to the crowd. Her Greek chorus of girls who follow behind her. Everything will be done to get the best reaction from those girls. If something doesn't get a good reaction, then she'll ditch it, try something else the next time, until she has a repertoire of things that is sure to get those girls giggling and clapping. And then she knows that she's on the right track. But what happens if people start changing the way that they react to her? Not the gaggle of girls, because they're there for their own reasons. They want to feel important because they're sucking up to this person they think is important. But other people, like the girl at the table who says, the cheerleader comes over, you're sitting in my seat. So, the cafeteria, I can sit anywhere I want. This is my table. I've decided it's my table. I'm going to sit here. Lots of chairs. Sit down. As soon as the girl doesn't respond to the bully the way that's expected, the bully doesn't know what to do anymore. How is she going to react? How is she going to recover herself? It's like Bob in that first thing. All of a sudden, they have to think about why and come up with a reason. And that will change who they are and what they're doing. So what we have the possibility of going anywhere we want with these characters. Maybe what we want to do is at Trope Academy is our hero is actually what they call paragon. He is one of those people who's just too good to be true. He does the right thing all the time, regardless of consequence to himself, because that's who he does. He does what he thinks is right. And in doing that, he drives everybody around him nuts and forces them to change. So our paragon is keep addressing the people saying, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. There's other ways of living. There's other ways. You don't have to be a two-dimensional trope. You can be a character in your own right and change and grow, which of course is going to be not terribly well taken at Trope Academy. But as the story goes on, as the bullies and the other tropes begin to think about what they're doing and why they're doing it and what their backstory is and what that backstory means to their actions and their feelings, they start rounding out. Bob maybe says, you know what? I'd rather be a football player. Football players don't get suspended. If I'm a football player, then I don't need to push these little kids around. And people will look up to me. Well, they all look up to me anyways because I'm tall, but they'll look up to me for a different reason than because I'm bigger and meaner than anybody else. So Bob goes off and becomes a linebacker, has a great career, and he still has to think to himself about why he's doing things. Is he doing this just because he wants to get those accolades? Or is he doing this because he's enjoying it and it is fulfilling him? Look at sidekick number 2. Sidekicks can often be the most interesting characters. That's if you give them the proper job, the proper role, which is to play the foil against the hero. There needs to be enough energy between the two of them that there's going to be sparks. Our sidekick is going to be the one who questions the hero and asks, is this really what we need to do? They're the ones who may make the hero rethink their plans. Or they may be the ones that, because they get captured, and hung upside down over a pit of vipers because our villain hasn't gone to Trope Academy in years, and so he doesn't know about these changes. The hero then has to rethink about, maybe he does need other people. Maybe he does need to listen. That's one of the things that paragons have a hard time with, is listening to other people and paying attention to their points of view. So sidekick number 2 becomes Lancer, which is the person who is beside the hero as a foil and the one who challenges him and helps the hero grow in the ways that they need to grow for that story to proceed. And then we've got our cheerleader, who wants to be important. Maybe what she needs to do is start thinking about ways that she can become useful. And in becoming useful, then she has a role. And if she has a role, then she is important. So she looks around and says, okay, well, what do I know how to do that's useful? Well, I know how to be a cheerleader. I'm cheerleader, number 3. So she starts a cheerleading squad. But instead of just picking the strongest and most agile and the prettiest girls for her cheerleading squad, she picks the girls who want to be cheerleaders but don't quite have what cheerleaders normally have, whatever that is for your story. She's making herself important by going against the trope, by making other people more important than her. And all of a sudden, things start shifting in the background, and, she becomes something other than just that flat antagonist. Every character in your story, every situation in your story, needs to move the story forward and needs to make it richer. If you have a magic sword, the magic sword needs to matter to the plot. The way that it's magic, the limits of its magic, what it will do, what it will not do. If a magic sword will do anything that the hero needs at any time, then what it is, it's not a magic sword, it's a Deus Ex Machina, and it's a story wrecker. So for each trope that you bring in, you need to stop and think, how am I going to make this work my way? How am I going to own it? Maybe what I'll do is, instead of having Bob, the blacksmith's son, the big hefty boy who goes around and punches people out, because that's been done and done and done. And the nasty who is, the aristocratic son who feels entitled, and that's been done too. What can I do? Well, maybe my bully will be a smaller than average kid who's got a smart mouth and is too smart for their own good. And they're bored. Like, they already know more than the teachers. They're stuck at school because the rules say they have to be at school. So what are they going to do for fun? Well, they're going to torment people. They're going to twist them around their fingers and make them do things to dance to his puppet strings. Now you have another different kind of character that you can have. You can turn, this is a person who could turn very easily into one of those megalomaniac villains, but be smarter than to hang sidekick number 2 over a pit of vipers while the hero comes to the rescue. All this comes down to is that there are plot devices we call tropes that show up in stories, and people see the trope and they have certain expectations. You know, they see the bully, they expect the bully to be pushing people around, and their job is to make the character suffer, you know, sufficiently for the plot. But what if you undercut that? And you make that bully a character in their own right, who changes and grows in their own right. You know, what if Crabbe develops a personality of his own instead of just following Malfoy around all the time? The story becomes more interesting. It has more depth. The more you think about your characters, even if you never put any of that stuff in the text, even if you never go when you do the backstory of these people, because you know it will change the way that you write them and change how they are doing, and it will affect how the world that you created affects them. And you have the tropes, but they're yours. They're no longer simply, you know, bully number 2 and sidekick number 2 and cheerleader number 3. They become your characters. The people that are walking through your world to learn what they need to learn to get to the goal that they don't know that they need to get to. But that's a whole different talk. So we'll do that another time. Anyways, this has been Alex McGilvery, Celtic Frog Publishing. You can find me on the web at CelticFrogPublishing.com. You can find my books at AlexMcGilvery.com. And you will find links from there to other resources that you can find about tropes, about story structure, and about writing, all kinds of things, because there's a lot of people out there who do brilliant stuff with how to write and how to use tropes. And so check out the website and see what you can learn from all these other authors. Because one of the things that we do is we work better as a group, like the bunch of people in a quest story. When we help each other, we develop each other, we all become stronger for it. And that's really how we make our stories stronger. Thank you.